Hello, and today we're doing a Portugal Euro 2020 23-man squad prediction. So this is the team that I hope Portugal bring to Euro 2020. I know it's technically 2021, but for, purposes of advertising, it's still called Euro 2020, and it's a big tournament for Portugal. We're trying to defend our European Championship title. Can we do it? Well, there's always a chance in football. Football is a funny game, and I'm feeling pretty confident with our squad. It might not be a tournament we win, but hopefully we can at least go fairly far. Quarterfinals, maybe, if not better. But ultimately, the squad we've got right now, I think, is better than our Euro 2016 winning squad. And we look right now to just be in a really good stage of youth, growing, talent across lots of positions, and just hopefully we give a good shot of it. But let's see how we do. Let's get into the video then, and let's talk through my 23-man squad. So to start off with, I'll tell you the structure of each position. So in a 23-man squad, the general consensus and the general way of doing it is you have 3 goalkeepers, 8 defenders, 6 midfielders, and 6 forwards. Now, with forwards, obviously, you can say they're strikers or you can say they're wingers, but they could still play in a forward role. For example, Diogo Jotter, he can play as a forward despite maybe being classified as a winger. So that's what we're going to get into. So let's kick things off with the goalkeeper. And it's difficult, I think, here because we know number 1 is Rui Patricio, and it's good to see he's recovered from that head injury that he suffered in that Wolves game the other week. So yeah, he's so good for us, and he just puts in consistent performances for Portugal. For Wolves, it's been a bit up and down defensively this season, but he's still a good player. He's a great shot stopper, and he will 100% be number 1 choice. But we've got a few decent, talented backup goalkeepers that could all have a shout of going there. So it's hard to choose one or the other, but I'm going to go for the second goalie as Anthony Lopez. I thought, in the World Cup qualifying, he's had a few games to try him out, and he's looked pretty solid, made a few good saves, and he probably is the best other than Rui Patricio. So I think Anthony Lopez has got to go there as well. The third goalie, though, I've gone for Beto, and I think with Beto, he's a bit of a experienced player, not necessarily a young gun, as I mentioned with this Portugal squad, but certainly a player that can come in handy for us. So I think Beto should come for Portugal in this Euro 2020 squad, just because, if the absolute unimaginable happens, Patricio gets injured, Lopez gets injured, then Beto is not the worst goalkeeper to basically rely on. But yeah, he's a decent player. Obviously plays for Firenze, and you've got Lopez playing for Lyon, Patricio playing for Wolves. So they're all very good goalkeepers, but those are my 3 that I would take to the Euro 2020, and that is my goalkeepers done. Let's move on to the defence, and we're kicking things off with the best defender in our team, in my opinion, and that is Ruben Diaz. What a season he's had for Manchester City. He's just been absolutely fantastic after his transfer from Benfica. And he just looks so strong, he looks so confident, and he's playing at the top of his game at the minute. And Man City are inevitably going to stroll to another title, and he's been one of the reasons for that. He's just completely revolutionised that Man City defence, and we know he's got lots of great qualities that he can show for Portugal too. In the World Cup qualifying and in other friendlies, he's just been so solid, and he makes a lot of last-ditch blocks, which really will be helpful for holding on to points in future games. So yeah, he's a quality player, great player from set pieces as well. He does score some headers. So yeah, I think he simply has to be the first defender on the list. But the next defender that I'm going to think of bringing for this 23-man Euro squad is Ricardo Pereira. Now, this is an interesting one. Obviously, he got ruled out with injury for a long time for Leicester City, and he's still a player who you'd imagine should go to the squad. He has had a time out, so it will affect him, but I think ultimately he's fairly fit now. I think he's fairly good to go, and he's just so attacking. He gives us those avenues, whipping in balls, getting down the byline and really just taking on the opposite fullback. So I think Ricardo Pereira is too good to not have in this squad, and will basically give a really nice option. If Cancelo's not playing, we can have Cancelo even on the left and then Pereira on the right. Very good width that he provides and very good attacking potential. And he can get back if needed as well, Ricardo Pereira. So although it's been a bit of a stop-starty season for Leicester City, I think he'd still be good enough to get into the team. The next defender we've got, another Manchester City player, Joao Cancelo. What a player he is. I mean, he simply has been superb since he came from Juventus to Manchester City. And ultimately, he's just so attacking, just like Ricardo Pereira. But he just really has looked fantastic for Manchester City. And, you know, they have rotated at times. But Cancelo, as I said, can play on the left, play on the right. He's really versatile in that position and he can put in some great balls. We saw that in World Cup qualifying. We saw that in internationals previous weekends in the season. And he really just looks like such a great player. And he's kind of the perfect player to be there on that right-hand side for Ronaldo, who will prey on those kind of deliveries. But yeah, ultimately, we're looking very strong in the defensive department. I think Cancelo is another man who simply has to be in that defence. All right, the next defender I've gone with, which is a little bit of an outsider's choice, but I guess it's still not a bad shout, and that is Nuno Mendes. Now, Mendes recently has been playing in a more like CDM role. He's just been coming on in games and trying to like solidify what we already had. But he can play at defence, and I think he's more known for that, really. But he's a good player, Nuno Mendes. There's no doubting it. The left back plays for Sporting, and he really is just very hard to stop when he gets going. Man City are trying to sign him. I mean, as if they haven't signed already enough players. But ultimately, they're looking like a lot of clubs are looking like they want to get Nuno Mendes, and he just looks really, really good. A great prospect, 18 years of age, and I think the sky's the limit for this kid. He just looks so positive, and he looks like he can really adapt into this role. So I think if, you know, Cancelo doesn't play on that left and we have instead Nuno Mendes, that's a great offer and a great opportunity for us to go with. So I think Nuno Mendes, although it's a bit of a differential in terms of it's a bit out there, not many people will have seen Nuno Mendes and, you know, heard of him, but he certainly is a player I think can really adapt and grow if he gets some games at this Euros. So next on our defenders list, and to be fair, we do have a lot of right backs at this point in time, but it's not a problem because we said about Cancelo, we can put him on the left, and with a lot of these right backs, we can also put them on the left. But the next defender is Cedric Suarez from Southampton, obviously previously, now he's at Arsenal, and he's also had a bit of a stop-starty season, but still a very good player to have. Again, with Cancelo and Cedric, they can whip in some absolutely fantastic balls. And he might take a free kick or two, Cedric. You know, he's got a very good curl on that shot. But I do really rate Cedric. I think he's been a bit of a bit part player for Arsenal this season. But when he's been on it, he really has looked impressive. And I think he's got that responsibility as well. When he needs to, he can get back and track back and make that important last-ditch tackle. So, yeah, I think Cedric is a good player for us. And hopefully he should do some important stuff for us at these Euros. And then the next defender is Mario Rui. Now, he has looked fairly good. He's come on for a few substitute appearances in the last couple of matches, but he does play, of course, for Napoli. And he plays, again, as a left-back, so it is another option. He's a bit more experienced, 29 years of age, and he is a player that, again, likes to get forward, but is very solid on his day. So, yeah, he's probably not completely the highest the Portugal defender on the pecking order, but he's still, I think, a player that will come in useful for us. So, yeah, Mario Rui, the left-back, I think is worth a mention. Then Nelson Semado, another right-back, another Wolves player, but he is very, very good on his day. You know, he just does look so strong. And at Barcelona, he really did fulfill his potential. It's been a bit more difficult to adapt to life in the Premier League at Wolves for Nelson, but I still think he's a very good player. Again, very adaptable, very versatile player. And that wraps up our penultimate defender. But my final defender for us to take to these Euros would be Raphael Guerrero. Raphael Guerrero, great player, and he really is, again, so attacking. We've got a lot of attacking defenders, which helps the team go forward, but also they're very streetwise and experienced in the defensive positioning and defensive tracking back. And Raphael Guerrero, at this point in time, he's a very good player and he's well known by a lot of clubs. And it's fair enough because he's just been doing fairly well at this point in time. So I think Raphael Guerrero, right now, he's not been lighting it up, but he's still a very good player for Dortmund. And he, of course, was with us in the 2018 World Cup. But I think he should get a few more chances in this Euros because he has started to grow in his game and show a bit more of what he can do. So yeah, I like Raphael Guerrero and I think he should be given a chance. And that's our final defender for this 23-man squad. Okay, let's move on next then to the list of midfielders. Now, this is a tough one because I've got to say we have a lot of depth in this position. Like, we've got so many up-and-coming players, but also some established players that really have just caught an eye. So we've got to start with the most obvious one, and that is Bruno Fernandez. I mean, what a season he's had at Manchester United. Since he came in 2020, it's just been an absolute joy to see him in the Premier League with the Red Devils, and he just looks like he really loves to get involved, loves to provide assists and score goals, and you just simply cannot have Bruno Fernandes missing out in this team. So he's going to be a big player for us and is going to be a massive upgrade on previous midfielders we had at this kind of tournament, like Joao Mario, who, still a good player, but, his time has gone really. And maybe some oldies from that Euro team that won in 2016 could still be in this squad. But I think Bruno Fernandes is going to be so big for such an important tournament. So he slots in there for our midfield. The next player on our list is another winger, and well, I guess you could say more of a midfielder. But anyway, let's go with Bernardo Silva. What a player. Absolutely fantastic for Manchester City. And he really just looks like a player who seems to know what he's doing in a way. He kind of does always make an impact for Manchester City. He doesn't get played all the time because, as we know with that Man City team, they can rotate like absolute crazy. But he still is so useful when he gets given the game time, and he just has a wonderful, touch on him, a wonderful whipping cross, and we saw that again in the game against Serbia earlier on, that he can just put in the most wonderful crosses and just really make it difficult to play against. So yeah, what a player, Bernardo Silva. The next one is Pedro Neto. Now, there was a little bit of a fear that he wouldn't be able to play in this team because of earlier injury he had in the season, and then he had a slight knock that he suffered against Fulham, but hopefully he should be all right. I think it was only minor, so by the time the Euro swings around, you'd imagine Pedro Neto would be available, and he's had a great season really for Wolves. It's been a difficult one, I think, because, last season he kind of got involved in the last stages of it, and he was still trying to embed himself into that team. This season, though, he really has come into his own, and he's been a big part of the way Wolves play. Without Raul Jimenez, Pedro Neto has had to take more of a role and really make himself stand out, and he really has done that. So yeah, Pedro Neto deserves a place in this team, and really will give us some nice width and nice squad depth on that right hand side. So Pedro Neto, what a player he is. Then we've got a midfield spot for Renato Sanchez. Now this is a controversial one because he's not exactly had the most perfect career. He really does seem like a player who had a lot of potential when he was younger and who just not quite lived up to it. But I still think he can do very well at this kind of tournament. He did brilliantly in the Euro 2016, scored an absolute screamer of a goal against Poland. But obviously later in his career, went to Swansea. That absolutely failed. And then he's gone to France, gone to Lille. And he has actually been a bit better in performances. So I think it's probably, enough quality to bring. And I don't think we should leave him out, really, despite his struggles recently. So Renato Sanchez does give that midfield position, alongside Bruno Fernandes. He's very, determined to get tackles in and get a defensive display in as well, but he also can offer something going forward. So I think he's the right, all-rounder, the midfielder that can offer us a lot of, good things, whether that's attacking or defending. And I think Renato Sanchez, he's my player next on the midfield. And the next one is a bit of a difficult one because it's kind of changeable, and it does also depend on injury and how available these players are when it comes to Euro 2020. But basically, it's one of Joao Moutinho or Ruben Neves. Now, obviously, both of these play for Wolves, both very good players, very technically gifted. Even if they are, at the last stage of their career, people like Joao Moutinho has just been, week in, week out, showing some great quality. And actually, Moutinho had been having a recent problem with an injury, and then he came back against Fulham and replaced Pedro Neto. So Moutinho should be all right to play, but we don't know about Pedro Neto. He should be okay. And Ruben Neves, we know he's a constant, threat in that Wolves team. He always loves a free kick and just has great technique. On the volley, you'd back Pedro Neto, but you'd also back Ruben Neves to really get a great strike away. So he is a very good technical player. Whether we need both Moutinho and Neves is another question, but I think one of the two could be a good shout. So if I had to, choose one of them now and just hedge my bets on one of them, I'll go for Ruben Neves, just because I think Moutinho is getting towards the end of his career. He might not have this complete stamina to play in every game this Euros. So I don't know. It seems harsh because Moutinho's done nothing wrong, but I just feel like Neves maybe just might have a bit more in the tank. The next player to talk about in the midfield is the final midfielder, and that is Andre Gomes. Now, it's another tough one because he's not exactly been ripping it up for Everton, but also he's a very useful player that can come in handy when we get a couple of injuries that really could hurt us. So, yeah, it's got to be said that Ruben Neves, quality, but also Andre Gomes, I think, is equally as good. He really has been unlucky with injuries at Everton, and yeah, he's just struggled for game time because Sigurdsson and Decore have come in, and obviously Rodriguez has kind of barged him out of the way a bit in that Everton team. But I still feel Andre Gomes, it's incredible how he recovered from that horrific injury versus Tottenham, and he's still going strong, still believing, still fighting. And I think what Andre Gomes brings is something that we won't want to miss out on. He was in the Euro 2016 squad, and he plays in that central role that can really calm the rest of the defence, but also he provides that attacking flair going forward. So, yeah, I feel like with Andre Gomes, he's still got something to give. 27 years of age at Everton, but he can really do something for us, and I feel like he probably deserves to be in the team. All right, let's wrap up that midfield. That is done. Lovely stuff. Now let's move on to our forward line, our forwards, and our 6 players that I think we should bring in that squad. And again, this is tough because we have a lot of players that can play in forward positions, but play in, a bit further wide positions. But let's start off with Joao Felix. Now, he is the Portugal, wonder kid. He is the future of our team, and he just looks so good. Atletico Madrid did so well to bring him in, and it was a hefty wage, but that was, justified because of the potential he was showing. He really just looks like a player who, the sky's the limit once again. He just can't stop improving. And the more he plays games, the more he plays in these big, European championships, the more experience he'll gain. And ultimately, the better a player he'll become. And I really do feel that, he's a great player to have there. And he just can really work quite well with, people like Ronaldo. He can form that partnership. And when Ronaldo does go, eventually, he's going to hopefully just pass on the baton to Felix. And I think that Felix just has a lot of room to improve. So, yeah, he is a very good player for us, and I feel like he's going to be important, the spearhead of our attacks, Joao Felix. The next forward that I've got on the list is Diogo Jotter. Now, he's been in absolutely fantastic form for Liverpool this season, and I think the transfer from Wolves really did just make the sense for Diogo Jotter. He was playing at that Wolves team, getting the odd game, but he wasn't consistently playing, and when he did play, he was always scoring goals, but he just felt like he needed more game time. He needed, a bigger profile club to really show Diogo Jota, and Diogo Jota show the rest of the world what a special player he is. And he really has been so good at Liverpool. He's not got many games, and it's crazy to think how many goals he's scored from the minutes he's had. As I said, very, very good, few games in the World Cup qualifiers, and just such a threat in the box. You know, he's great at headering, great at just being there and being in the right position and sniffing out the chance. And he can just really thrive in this Portugal team. So he has to be in there for me. And then we have the GOAT, Cristiano Ronaldo. It's no doubting that Ronaldo is a great player for us. He is, you know, one of the best in the world. And it's such a great honour to have a player, such a prolific and such a experienced player in our ranks. And yeah, Ronaldo, he's not completely perfect because he's not at his peak of his career, but he's just done so much for Portugal, and he's really a great player who leads by example. And we saw in the Euro 2016 final, his injury was an absolute heartbreak, and I'm sure he would have just been kicking himself that happened. But he also is a leader, as well as a great player. He also just kind of puts his arm around the rest of the Portugal squad, and he really just helps them out. He really believes in every single one of them. And it showed that we didn't need Ronaldo in that Euro 2016 final. We have that, you know, team spirit, we have that unity, and we have enough quality in the rest of the pitch to get over the line and get results. And Eder with that famous goal. But yeah, Ronaldo's just got that star quality, and we know that he can score goals that are just picture book, really. So Ronaldo has to be in this team, and I don't think he's going to retire yet. He's still got a few years in him. So let's see how we can do in this Euro 2020 competition. And then the next forward we've got is another changeable one. But it's between Francesco Trincao, the young gun from Barcelona, or Andre Silva. So this is kind of two contrasting forwards. One of them at Barcelona, very young, and maybe isn't going to be given the chance because it's a bit too early in their career, and you might risk it and, you know, not want the player that's not quite got the experience for these kind of big competitions. Ultimately, he played in the under-21 side, Trincao, and whether he's ready for that step up, I don't know. But the thing to know is that Trincao has got a lot of potential. He really has been playing well for Barcelona, and I think that, you know, he's willing to take the challenge and take that step. It's just whether is that step too sizable for Trincao. I don't know, but he certainly is a good player. There's no doubting his talent. Meanwhile, Andre Silva, you know, he really is just starting to get towards the end of his career, but he's still a useful player. You know, at Frankfurt, he's scored the odd goal, not been completely prolific, but I feel like right now it's a Euro 2016, you know, title we're defending. 2020 Euros is going to be big. We want to try and retain it, but it's going to be very difficult with that group of death we've been served up. So it's about whether we rely on past, you know, good players from previous years with Andres Silva, or we go to the youth, go to the, you know, up and coming players. And I feel like right now it just makes more sense to go with, you know, what we know is good, and that is Andre Silva. So I could be wrong. I could be, you know, talking about Trincao here, and he could end up being in the squad, but I just feel like he might not be able to go the step up. So if we had to choose one, I'll say Andre Silva. Okay, and then we have one more forward to go, and we shall be finished. And that final forward, who is it going to be? It is Paulinho. Now, Paulinho is interesting because he's not been quite the player I think we thought he would be, but he's still going to be useful, and he's still been doing fairly well for Sporting. So, Sporting CP is the team he plays for, and I feel like right now he's a player that can still grow and still have important roles to play. And talking of Paulinho, there's also Joao Paulinho. Paulinho is also a very good player. Scored his first goal in the game up against Luxembourg, and I feel right now like Paulinho is certainly one that we can go for. He's 25 years old, defensive midfielder, so covers that defence quite well. But I don't know whether he would make the move to the, you know, the side for the Euro 2020. But right now I'm thinking about forwards, and I'm still sticking with Paulinho. So with Paulinho from Sporting SP, I think that he is still a player that is in good form this season. I feel, yes, at the age of 28, it's not ideal, but I like Paulinho, and I think that he could be useful if we have a few injuries to the likes of Andre Silva and possibly Diogo Jotter. So that is my final player. So just to wrap up, just to confirm, we've got Beto, Felix, Neto, Diaz, Jota, Ronaldo, Fernandez, Cancelo, Pereira, Patricio, Lopez, Cedric, Mendes, Silva, Sanchez, probably going to be Neves, then Silva, Paulinho, Gomes, Guerrero, and Semado. That is our team. Comment down below if I should change it, if there's anything you would change, but that is what I'm going to stick with. Let's see who that squad is going to be. You know, it could be anyone really, but I feel like we're going to be going into this confident. We should be with that squad, and let's just see where it takes us in this tournament this summer. But thanks for watching. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe for more varied football content. We'll try and get a few things out here and there, but obviously we can only do what we can do in the time provided. So thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time.